Hi folks, and welcome back to Meaningful Money. Okay, still here at Lamorna Cove, dodging the rain showers. Talking today now about trust taxation. Just introducing it really, and then we'll go into the individual taxes in the next 2-3 videos. Trust taxation is pretty onerous. Okay, it's certainly worse for trusts than it is for individuals. As you know, there are 3 taxes broadly. There's plenty more as well, but the 3 main ones are income tax, capital gains tax, and inheritance tax. Those are the 3 that you suffer as an individual. You can add VAT into that as well probably, but the 3 main ones that you suffer as individuals are also suffered as by trusts and trustees. Now, there were massive changes made to trust taxation in 2004, and there was a significant rise in the rates of tax paid by trusts last year in 2010. So let's look at the 3 taxes very briefly in introduction. The first is income tax. Most of us know how that works, and if you don't, then look back, I think in the 60s, episode 60 or something, or thereabout, 61, 62, about how income tax works. Now, there is a special rate of income tax, and it's called the rate applicable to trustees, or rate applicable to trusts. So it's the RAT, R-A-T, and that is a pretty hefty 50%. 50%. So half of all the income goes in tax. Now, that's pertaining to savings, so interest on money in a bank, and also things like income from rental properties owned by the trust. When it comes to dividends owned by the trust, that is taxed at 42.5%, so slightly better, but not a lot. Okay, so that's the rate applicable to trusts, this special high rate paid by trustees on income that they receive. Now, there is something called a standard rate band, and all that means is that the first £1,000 of income received by a trust is taxed at ordinary rates. So let's say if it's dividend income, it'd be 10%. If it's savings interest, then it'd be 20%. So that first £1,000, big wow, thanks Mr. Revenue, is taxed at ordinary rates. Thereafter, the RAT, the rate applicable to trusts, kicks in at that higher level. Now, that standard rate band is what's called per settler. So let's say if I'm the settler, I'm setting up one trust, well, that trust will get that full £1,000 band. But if I set up 5 trusts, well, that £1,000 band will be divided between those 5 trusts. So each trust will only get 200 quid each at the standard rate. Thereafter, they're paying the rate applicable to trusts. So that's income tax. Capital gains tax is quickie, dead easy. It was simplified a couple of years ago, but the rate was put up last year, and it's a flat rate of 28%. So it doesn't matter how long you've held the asset. When you come to dispose of it as a trustee, you're going to pay 28% tax on it. However, you'll remember from capital gains tax videos ages ago, if you've been watching all the time, as individuals, you have an allowance that you can gain in any one tax year of £10,100. Well, trusts have that too, but it's half the amount. So the first £5,050 that a trust gains in any one tax year is free of capital gains tax. Thereafter, it's at 28%, pretty steep still. Finally, we got inheritance tax. Now, the inheritance tax is not paid by the trust or the trustees as such. It's really on the settler, the person setting up the trust, when they put the money in the trust. But also, the trust itself can pay it because there can be a charge when the money is paid in, but depending on the type of trust, there can also be a charge every 10 years, and on exit, so when the money is finally paid to the beneficiary, there can be an inheritance tax charge there. Now, I'll come back to that in more detail a little bit later on, but it depends on the kind of trust, but there can be inheritance tax to pay during the life of the trust, and there can be inheritance tax to pay when the settler sets up the trust. So that's income tax, capital gains tax, and inheritance tax, as it relates to trusts and trustees. So what we're going to do now is to go into a little bit more detail. Now I realise this can be potentially dry, but I'll try and make it as simple as possible and just give you the salient points. Remember, you might be a trustee one day. If you're an executor of a will, that will might set up a trust. So you need to know this stuff. I'll make it as interesting as I can, I promise. And I'll see you next time, and goodbye from Lamorna Cove.